Hello everybody. Welcome yet again to Common Censored. I continue to be Lee Camp. And as always, I'm joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Continues to be joined by me, despite his best efforts of sending me packing. I continue to be here.
That is not true at all. Although I do like to begin the second half of Redacted tonight by going, welcome back. Despite all efforts, I am still Lee Camp. Welcome to the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other shit.
See, you've changed it to other shit. I think sometimes it should be other stuff.
I'm trying.
You're really
I'm
gone
reading.
full
I'm
other
feeling
shit.
the pulse of the people, Lee, and the pulse of the people say right now it's other shit. Am I right?
Yeah.
It's
not other stuff? Because I was dealing with other stuff yesterday.
No. Like, other stuff is this. Well, that's the thing. Other stuff is the stuff that you deal with, like, oh, I have to do laundry. But when we're talking about...
We've rarely ever had a segment on how we have to do laundry. I mean, it was like twice we talked about.
There was that time I talked people through hand washing their delicates. No, but I just feel like right now, shit is awry. Shit is intense, and it's shit. It's not stuff.
Okay.
That's how I feel right now.
But maybe we should talk people through hand washing their shit.
That is above my pay grade.
We have a hell of a show for you today. Thank you guys for joining us, and thanks so many of you for joining us on the live stream. We continue to do the live streams almost every week. And this coming Saturday will be the next one, 8 p.m. Eastern on this coming Saturday. We've been raising money at each one. They're free to attend, by the way. If you don't have money, feel free to join us also. But we've been, as a side note in each of these live streams, we've been raising money for various causes. This past week, we raised $600 for the Innocence Project, getting people who are, as the name kind of says, who are innocent out of jail, out of prison. And week before that, it was over $600 for, what was it?
Was that Appalachians Against Pipelines, or was that the week before?
It was community bail funds. Over $600.
Community fail buns.
Community fail buns. We've been doing these live streams. They're a lot of fun, and unlike right here where it's us talking to you, we get to talk with you on the live streams.
Yeah, there's some good conversations.
You guys, you put your comments up there. We answer them. We talk about your topics, your questions, and that's all at youtube.com/momentofclarity. I'll mention it again later. But yeah, we had a really great live stream this week, and we're looking forward to the next one. It's kind of like the podcast if you guys were there. So, but since you're not here this time, we'll just get into some topics right now.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's talk about what we did this. Was it yesterday? Wow, days are. Does that mean they're going? Does that mean they're going by fast or slow? If it seems like it was a week ago.
It's just days.
We went to another DC protest. We covered it. I live streamed it on Facebook. But another good Black Lives Matter protests. They marched down to the highway and stopped traffic, and it was nice.
It was nice.
It was nice. It's going. I mean, these things are going, I think, in most cities almost every day. And now that the cops have stopped showing up in riot gear and hitting people with pepper spray and shit, they seem to be calmer, which, has its, I guess, benefits and detractions.
Well, I think that the key now that organizers are talking about and that folks in general are talking about is like where do we look for fuel for these continued protests?
Don't say fuel for the fire.
I didn't.
No,
you said
well
your
done.
words.
Well done.
Your words. NSA. He said it, not me. No, but where do we look for fuel to continue this? Because it's kind of. And I was just rereading some information about Stonewall, which
Jackson.
No, the original Gay Pride, which was in fact a riot, precipitated by police violence. Well, that's a shocker. In 1969, when even in New York City, in lovely New York City, it was illegal to be gay. And so So I was reading about this and basically reading about how Stonewall, basically led by trans and femme people of color, basically created the gay rights movement as we understand it today. And it's not some sort of and for those who don't know, this is Pride Month, although I would like to say that every month is Pride Month, because you should be fabulous all of the time.
You should have seen the hand motions that were connected to that statement. Every month is Pride Month.
But basically, that it's important to recognize the radical beginnings of these movements, and that Pride, for at least the Pride parades that I've been to, have become so commercialized, so commodified. Here in DC.
Listen, the Citibank Pride float was pretty incredible last year. All right,
exactly.
It had an ATM where you could swipe the card between the ass cracks. It was pretty awesome.
So here in DC, there's a group called No Justice, No Pride that really works to dismantle the corporatization of Pride and bring it back to these radical roots, because there's like some of the people that are supporters of these Pride parades in these cities are like Lockheed Martin. And,
well, and this is standard. Yeah, this is standard for any movement that gets to a certain size. The corporations, the big money, wherever it's coming from, comes in and says, basically, are you going to turn down $100 million to make your parade really awesome, to make it really legit? And ultimately, they find someone, maybe at first some people fight against it. Ultimately, they find enough people to, accept the money and kind of co-opt a movement and sterilize it,
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've definitely seen that happen with Pride, which is why it's so awesome and important that there are folks like No Justice, No Pride that are working to dismantle that corporatization and really highlight the fact that the original Pride movement was, of course, for LGBTQ rights, but it's connected to the human rights struggles that are the antithesis of the corporate state, that are the antithesis of any sort of capitalist profit motives. And so that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that struggle happen right now with Black Lives Matter. Like, if you go down to the White House, there are big tables set up with people selling, Black Lives Matter shirts. And it's the kind of stuff that you'll see if you've ever been to DC, like during an inauguration or anything like that. It's the same kind of people that are set up there that just like happen to have made a bunch of Trump T-shirts. So it's not like, and there might be a few vendors where the money that they make goes back to the community, but overwhelmingly these are people selling shirts just because they're like, oh, this is the thing now that we're doing. And
well, yeah, I mean, it says something about America that this is the moment there is an energy behind anything, you're gonna have people showing up and being like, I have the hat that says it, and so it's
and it becomes,
it's like, I don't know if I like hate the guy selling the T-shirts. I kind of hate for that to become what any movement is about.
Oh, I totally don't hate the guy selling the shirt. I mean, I don't hate the people working at Walmart or, Amazon. It's not their fucking fault.
And the ice cream trucks, marching and protest is very hard work. You need an ice cream.
Although, for fuck's sake,
you need an icy
song, that stupid fucking creepy ice cream truck song got stuck in my head, and I haven't slept. But yeah, so I think, and this is actually not even just an American phenomenon. I am a bit of a Francophile, and
she does love the Franks.
I like reading about the French Revolution. And one of the things that happened during the French Revolution is, when things started to pop off, to use the parlance of our times, vendors on Pont Neuf in Paris, which is like kind of like the main thoroughfare bridge there, were like flooding to sell these little tricolor, that's the red, white, and blue, the tricolor ribbons, the tricolor little brooches that women could slap on their chests. Like, it became the commodification of radicalism. So this idea is not a new one. And although I think that the U.S. does do it best, it's certainly not a purely American concept.
So I know we discussed this in previous weeks a bit, but I guess I'm still struggling with it. Like, does the fact that this has been turned into Black Lives Matter Boulevard or whatever the fuck they call it, and they put up a sign, does that actually? Because my first thought was like, okay, that's fine as long as people keep protesting and as long as it's connected to actual legitimate change as opposed to just painting words on the street. But does the act of painting those words on the street, perhaps kind of like with when they create protest zones and they're like, yeah, you guys can be angry, just do it within that fence square over there. That's where you can be angry. And that immediately both allows protest and yet sucks all the energy out of a protest because people are like, oh, good, we're allowed to protest in this little square over here. And, you know, they tried to do that with Occupy. Like, Occupy was initially like, we're occupying this square. And then they started putting fences around the square. So you could enter the square, but you were then in a cage. Like, it's like, yeah, you do your Occupy thing, but we're going to put walls around you so that you stay in your occupied zone.
Right. I think there's so much potential for that for these movements to be defanged, which is again why it's vital to look to history, like to Stonewall, and what better time to do that, to really look to that as a lesson in not allowing our movements to be co-opted by commodification and not be defanged by the system. And one of our mutual friends, who's a rad local Black organizer, Maurice, in D.C., and I quoted him in a recent article. He was like, should I feel less afraid if I get pulled over by cops on 16th Street now? Because he's a black guy with dreads, and it's like, well, no, it doesn't fucking matter that Black Lives Matter.
What if he has the T-shirt on, though? Is he okay then?
And this is, I took a picture of a cop wearing a mask that said, I can't breathe. And I was like, no. You have to pick a lane, dude. By
the way, a black cop. Yeah.
You can't do both. Yes, it was a black cop.
So he's got this photo's pretty incredible. It's this ripped dude with the bulletproof vest on that says police across it, and then a black mask across his face that says I can't breathe across it. And it's like, yeah, you can't be both. I know they'd love to leave us thinking you can. Oh, those are the good cops. He gets it.
It's like a guy wearing one of those shirts from the Westboro Baptist Church that says God hates fags, hitting on a guy with a rainbow pride flag. Like, you can't do both. You have to pick a lane.
Right. And there are cops that are not bad people, but they don't understand the entirety of policing. They only understand it from a very small view of what they are involved in. But if you understand the core of policing, the overarching goal of our current police system in this country, then you can't be the good cop that tries to help out. Ray Lewis, and we've brought him up many times on the show, but he's talked about this. When he was in the cops, he thought...
He was a Philadelphia police captain.
Yeah, Philadelphia police captain. He's retired now. He thought that he, to some extent, could change it from the inside. And he tried to be one of the good guy cops. And the way he's described it, at least a couple of times I've talked to him, is that he became a worse and worse person. He lost his ethics to some degree. Now, I don't know how bad he got. He didn't say, oh, I just beat the shit out of people for fun of it. But I think ultimately that also is what led to his retirement, was like he realized that not only could he not reform it from the inside, but he was changing as a person.
Well, and he told me that there was an interview I did with him where he admitted to me. It was weird because we were about to wrap the interview. And then I typically ask my guests this, although usually they don't take me up on it. But
do you want a mint? Oh, no. A goodbye mint.
Mentos? It's the fresh maker. I say, is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything that you feel that I didn't cover? Because, this is their platform to say what they need to say. And he just straight up goes, well, yes, I used to be a brutal cop. And I was like, what?
That's safe for the end.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? I don't know. I don't have a response for that. But then I was like, would you like to expound on that?
I can't remember if I saw it. Maybe I was watching House or something, but they call it the doorknob question. Where the patient comes in, he's like, I have a bit of a cold. And the doctor's like, all right, well, here's some cold medication. See you later. And then the guy gets to the doorknob and he's like, also, my asshole is bleeding. Like that dirty thing that is saved for the also. And so Ray Lewis pulled one of those on you.
He did. He had a doorknob moment. But then he proceeded to talk about how he tried to go through. They oftentimes talk about, whether that be the FBI or the police, the proper channels. He tried to go to the proper channels. He asked to see a psychologist, and he got so much shit for it. Then when he finally managed to go see one, dude didn't fucking pay attention to him, told him to take some pills and get over it. There was no question about dealing with his actions, no question of actually addressing the brutality, his own admission to the brutality and saying that he was feeling sick about it. He didn't like that he was doing it, but he didn't know how to control his anger. He needed anger management help, and the police were basically like, I don't fucking care. Stop being such a baby about.
I increasingly love the idea of the proper channels. It's like a unicorn, it's a leprechaun, it's a four-leaf clover. It's something you hear about. People mention it. Oh, the proper channels. Yeah, did you go through the proper channel? Let me tell you about these proper channels. They do not exist.
No, I'll tell you what
right?
the proper channel
it's
is.
Like...
The proper channel is go fuck yourself. That is the only proper channel. But yeah, so and Ray Lewis has since his retirement, the Fraternal Order of Police have tried to take his pension away. They have publicly
They've really come
attacked
after
him. And so he's kind of turned into a bit of a recluse because of that, although he still speaks out. I was just in touch with him recently, and he said that he's been asked to do a lot of interviews about the police and about police brutality. He was kind of a mainstay at a lot of Occupy encampments, and also was photographed in full uniform, carrying signs that say Black Lives Matter. And the final point about this that I want to make is that you'll notice it's only retired cops that ever, and I'm not trying to shit on Ray, I think what he's doing is fucking amazing, but there's a reason that it's only retired cops, because if a cop does this, who still has a job, stands up and says Black Lives Matter and all this shit, and goes out and speaks like Ray does about police brutality, about the bullshit about proper channels, about the fact that when they test for police, they don't allow people who are too empathetic. Those cops are fired if they were still employed. So this is why, the concept of abolition and the concept of cops being bastards is because when you put on that uniform, you become part of this. It really is a fraternity of police. It is this locked and loaded brotherhood where you can do no wrong, because if you do wrong, then you are admitting you do wrong is an affront to the entire institution of policing, because police are infallible. And actually the fucking Supreme Court just said that as much, because they overturned they refused a request to look at qualified immunity, which is basically what the police use to say that because they work in high stress situations, they can't be held accountable for any of their actions.
Proper channels are the winning lottery ticket. We're all told it's out there, but we'll never see it. Like proper channels with the Pentagon, whistleblowers that actually come out, like Snowden, et cetera, Chelsea Manning, they're told, why didn't you go through the proper channels? Yeah, you know how many people or how many complaints there were through the proper channels at the Pentagon? I believe it was over a 5-year span. 100,000 whistleblower complaints through the proper channels. You know how many were investigated? Less than 1%. You know how many of those they found were legit? Almost none. So basically, the proper channels is like, please give us that piece of paper with your complaints so we can burn them.
Yeah, and John Kiriakou, who we both know, who's one of the co-hosts of Loud and Clear, he's a CIA whistleblower, and he was the only guy to go to jail for the CIA terrorism program.
Torture.
Sorry, what did I say? Terrorism.
I mean, it really is a terrorism program when you think about it. It really is. But torture
the CIA
program.
torture program, and he said that he started by going through the proper channels, and they told him to go fuck himself. So again, this is the proper channels are the go fuck yourself channels. They're the stay quiet and just stay in line channel.
By the way, just to let you know, for those of you, we've been talking a lot about police for many weeks now. I mean, granted, it's because these protests are so massive and important and everything else. We're going to talk a little more about defunding the police and where that money would go. But then we're going to talk about some things that are not policing. I know that's incredible. I know it's unheard of on this show. But we're going to talk about how many Americans think capitalism is a good idea nowadays and super PACs. Anyway, we've got a lot of other topics coming up.
This is Lee saying, please don't leave.
Well, this is me. This is me suddenly realizing that we've done like the past 4 hours of podcast on policing. So
touche.
So I'm just remembering that. So I thought I'd let people know there's more coming. But I do want to get into there is talk of defunding the police and the military, right?
Yeah. So basically, when we talk about defunding,
sorry, I skipped over the LA schools. We can also throw that in there.
Okay, well, we can throw that in there really quick, just because I thought that the headline of this article is pretty. It'd be hilarious if it weren't real life. LA Unified School Police, that's school police as in police in schools,
which shouldn't be there in the first place,
will return grenade launchers, but they're going to keep the rifles and the armored vehicle.
Well, let's hope they don't throw them when they return them.
I'll read it again. LA Unified School Police will return grenade launchers, but keep rifles an armored vehicle.
What the fuck would you need a grenade launcher at a school? Even if you had an active shooter scenario, which is incredibly rare, you're not going to fire a grenade at him because you'd take out the whole classroom.
In order to save the village... No, wait. What's this? It's got to be your bull. What's the saying?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The Vietnam saying. You got to kill the people to save the village?
Maybe.
There's some saying that basically says you have to napalm the village in order to save it.
Yeah, that definitely is true.
Which is, I think, the perspective of the LA Unified School Police. Which also just the fucking school police. That's okay. Anyway, I go into this a little bit more in an article that's coming out with Mint Press News this week, so look for that. But I do want to talk about the defunding the police as it relates to defunding the military. And that previous story has a lot to do with that because, well, I dare say, where did the police get a fucking grenade launcher to begin with? That sounds like weapons of war.
Right.
Of course they are. And we've talked about the 1033 program before, the military to school pipeline.
The bayonets
the military to police pipeline.
The bayonets are not on our streets any longer. Obama made sure of that.
Yes, the sword guns are unavailable.
He stopped the sword gun to police pipeline. Thank the Lord.
I was very afraid of that. It's the main problem with police brutality. But understanding that when we make calls to defund the police, not only is this part of a larger abolition framework, but it connects deeply to the inherent militarization of our society, not just domestically, but in terms of foreign wars. So these are necessarily tied, and that's why, I'm a big fan of talking about issues as they are interconnected, and this is a big one, because the U.S. is an empire, and that imperialism is a home game just as much as it is a war game on foreign soil. So what happened today, I believe, today is Representative Barbara Lee, actually this was yesterday, sorry, unveiled a resolution proposing up to $350 billion in cuts to the Pentagon budget by closing U.S. military bases overseas, ending ongoing conflicts, that's a bit vague, but good, scrapping weapons programs, and eliminating the Space Force, because yes, there's a Space Force. So basically, they're and Common Dreams is where I'm looking at this, and they offer a more detailed breakdown of this. But just so we understand, this is, what is this, like roughly half of the Pentagon, but no, it's less than half.
It's less than half of the stated budget. It's probably a third of, once you throw in things like Homeland Security and black budgets and stuff. It's over $1 trillion is the actual budget, but yeah, it's less than half of the stated Pentagon budget, which is $738 billion, I believe.
Which that is, I mean, I can't. Well, your brain can't, like those. What are those things that you?
It's dark in here, and we may die. That's Lewis Black's quote said. The right half of the brain looks at the left half and goes, "It's dark in here, and we may die."
That's how I feel. But you have these good comparisons. Like if a person were to work like 40.
If a person works a job that makes $40,000 a year, they would need to work for, I believe it's 25 million years to make $1 trillion. So get to work, everybody.
Get cracking.
Fucking work.
Yeah, and even I mean, these numbers are so fucking bonkers that I just can't even.
It's only 23 million if you buy single-ply toilet paper. So.
Oh, good. Then I have a head start. So yeah, this idea, and it's fantastic that this is being put forward by Representative Lee. Of course, we don't expect it to go anywhere right now, but a huge part of what we're doing at this moment is creating these conversations. You know, a lot of people, when we have conversations about Occupy, for instance, we talk about the fact that it didn't fail because it shifted the conversation. It opened people's eyes to the fact that we live in an oligarchy, that we live under a corporate state, and that understanding has snowballed into so many other movements that to say that Occupy failed is simply untrue. And so what we're seeing now is we're seeing a shift in the conversation to really even beg the question, okay, well, if we don't need police, then why do we need an offensive, in many terms of that word, an offensive military as opposed to a defensive military that is so much smaller, that really is just there in case someone has the crazy whacked out idea to, invade the U.S., which, as Abraham Lincoln famously said, wouldn't fucking work. I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but that was the gist of the quote. Because we're bordered by 2 oceans. We've got massive fucking mountains in the middle of the country. Like, good luck. So it's really about shifting the conversation to ask why we need these things.
So where would have you done some research on where would the money go that we take from the police?
Yes. I mean, it's not me doing this research necessarily. These are grassroots kind of demands that are popping up all over the country.
No one would have known. You could have just taken credit.
No.
Said it was all you.
And so right now I'm looking at the DC specific one, which if you're interested in taking a look is defundmpd.org. But one of the things that they answer is, how will you keep our city safe if we defund MPD? And they write, the police are not well equipped to respond when crisis affects our communities. Rather, mental health service providers, victim/survivor advocates, community leaders, community care workers trained in restorative and transformative justice models, neighbors, friends, and other violence interrupters are all better situated to deal with crisis when it occurs. And furthermore, and no less importantly, the conditions that create crisis, lack of housing, lack of food, lack of mental and physical health care can be transformed. The safest communities don't have the most cops, they have the most resources. And that is really the cornerstone of this whole conversation is, where are you going to put that money? Put it in the community, in a variety of places, so that the community has resources. Because
education, school lunches, Head Start, all those things have been proven to decrease violence in a community.
Yeah, and so it's incredibly vital that we, and I bet wherever you are listening to this, there is an organization in your area that's working on these, on where that money should go, like the investment aspect of this conversation. I also want to share the the website Transform Harm. So if you go to transformharm.org, and it's a great hub of information. They have 6 main categories that organize the content. One is transformative justice. The other is community accountability, restorative justice, abolition, healing justice, and carceral feminism. So this is a great hub to look at, kind of the larger questions and institution of police and prisons, and basically our quote unquote justice system at large. So I definitely recommend that for further reading as well.
Absolutely. Some quick notes I want to throw in here. As I mentioned earlier, our live stream is this coming Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's free to attend. It's at youtube.com/momentofclarity. We usually hang out with you all for about an hour, so we hope to see you there. Also, Eleanor's movie is gaining the awards, the placards, the
laurels.
The laurels are flowing in. We've got a box full of laurels. Several film festivals have put you on the.
The most recent is the New
selection.
York Liftoff Festival. So very stoked to be honored by them.
And nominated, which is also exciting, nominated for Best Woman Filmmaker at, which was that, Barcelona or?
Yep.
Anyway.
Sounds about right. Sorry.
Oh, isn't that tough when you get so many awards you lose track of which is which?
All right.
I just can't. I don't know. It's too many. I need to hire someone to categorize these because of all the awards coming in.
I am not dealing with life creep. I'm just tired.
I know. But yeah, so anyway, all this is to say that if you were not thinking of watching her film and you were thinking, I only watch documentaries and films that have received awards of some kind from various film festivals around the globe, then you can now be okay with watching it. It's called Hard Road of Hope. It is at hardroadofhope.com. Go and grab it there if you get a chance. Highly recommend everybody check it out. What else was I going to say? Well, all of our stuff is at patreon.com/commoncensored. We've updated the tiers recently. So you can become a member for like $1 or $2 and really help keep the show going, because this show is completely funded by you. There are no ads, nothing like that. So it all comes down to you guys. And some people have been asking on Redacted Tonight. I've been mentioning that we will soon, probably next month, no longer be putting the full episodes on youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. Couple of notes I want to put here. One is all of the segments will still be available on YouTube. The full episodes will be available on portable.tv. This is RT America's app, free app. It is all free. There is no paywall. This is not trying to get you to pay anything for the Redacted Tonight episodes, because I've gotten a couple of emails of people saying, listen, I don't make much. I wish you made more, but that has nothing to do with this. This is a free app that you can go use to watch Redacted Tonight on your phone or device or whatever. It's at portable.tv/download. So one is, we're not charging anything. Two is, if you are unable to get portable.tv, you can still get all of the segments of Redacted Tonight at youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. It just won't be all together as an episode. You can still watch all of the segments if you absolutely cannot get the app. Third is, this is not my decision, folks. Do not hate me. I did not come up with this. I didn't make the app, and this is not my call. This is, guess what? I am not the entirety of RT America. It is a big company, and this is what they've decided to do. So if this upsets some people, I am sorry. Number 4 is, some people have pointed out that the episodes so far on portable.tv have been bleeped out, and that's annoying. I agree, and I'm working on changing that, and chances are that will soon be changed so that the episodes on portable.tv will not be bleeped out.
The fucks will be flying.
And I'm sorry to go so long about this, but last point is, you can also get Redacted Tonight and all of RT on DirecTV. That's a form of satellite TV, and Pluto TV. So both of those things still have all of RT America on there, so feel free to grab it there as well. Okay, sorry to go so long with that.
I just like that you're like DirecTV, which is a form of satellite television. Do you remember television?
Do you remember the television? I haven't owned a TV in years.
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah,
and when I
neither.
go into hotel rooms and stuff, I don't even notice that. I mean, granted, I'm not saying I'm not a dumb American who watches stupid shit, but I just watch stuff on Netflix and things like that, and I don't even notice when there's a TV in a hotel room.
Oh, see, okay, well, first of all, I think you're lying because some of these things are ginormous and you can't avoid them because they take up precious space where I can put like my books and shit.
No, they're flat screen. They're against the wall.
Not all of them, but my point is sometimes
you found an actual big tube television. Where were you staying? Were you staying at a Super 8 in Poughkeepsie?
Okay.
Was it bolted to the desk?
No, but like they're the ones that have like the little foot that they sit on, but they're still flat. Jeez. No, but I will do the thing where I will like lay on the bed and watch television because it just I feel almost like it's almost like this weird like pastime. Like I get to connect to a pastime where it's like, oh, I can still go to the bathroom during commercials. Remember when that was a thing?
Do you keep flicking? Do you flick a lot?
I flick. I flick. But
I just realized that sounded dirty. I didn't mean for it to sound dirty.
Not flicking the bean, flicking the channels. For those who don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Don't. There are limits on this podcast.
But do you remember as kids, if you're below the age of, do we want to say 25? You won't understand this. But when you were watching something like with your sibling or like some friends or something, and there'd be a commercial and you'd run to take a piss, and then you'd hear, it's starting! And then you'd like kind of piss on yourself while trying to rush back to see the beginning of the...
Or worse yet, have to take a dump, and you got to try and really force it out, you know? You got to really put some effort behind it.
You got to start the movie...
Hold on to the towel rack for leverage, you know? It's, it can be pretty, you know, because the movie Big is about to, the commercial break's about to be over in the other room.
I recommend...
Halfway through Shawshank Redemption, you know.
I recommend starting the movie with some X-Lax. Just mix that into
then you're just spending more time in the bathroom. And you can't wait for the commercial break. Ironically, advertising X-Lax. All right, last couple of things. My book, my new book is out, as many of you know, leecampbook.com. There's great new reviews of it by Robert Shear and many others. Anyway, you can get 10% off using the coupon code, the initials of the title, BPAPL. 10% off at leecampbook.com. I really hope you'll check it out. There is so much stuff, even though this came out 3 months ago, there's so much stuff that is applicable to today. Stuff about policing, stuff about Wall Street, stuff about the trillions unaccounted for at the Pentagon. It's all in there. leecampbook.com.
It's brilliant.
All right. And all of Eleanor's stuff is at artkillingapathy.com. She has a new article coming out at Mint Press as well. And you can email us topics and thoughts at commoncensored@protonmail.com. Okay. I'm sorry that took so long. Let's move it along. Let's get to how many Americans still trust capitalism. I love this. There was a new survey done of I believe it's 1,000 Americans
on Business Insider of all places.
Well, it's covered by them. It wasn't done by them, but yes.
Well, the article's on Business Insider.
The article's on Business Empire. It's a Harris Poll and Just Capital independent research firm. Founded by billionaire investor Paul Tudor Jones.
Is his name really Tudor?
Of course it is.
Okay.
Just like Trump's son is named Barron Trump.
You know, I actually went to school with some kids called Barron.
You did not.
I did. There was at least one named Barron, I remember.
Did you kick him in the balls?
Well, he hated me. And he was the kind that would wear like rebel flags to school.
Of course he hated you. You're not a baron. You're not a Duke of Earl either.
I like that song.
So they surveyed 1,000 people, and they found that 25% of Americans, 25% of those 1,000 people is all that's left that think capitalism is good for society. And that is incredibly low for America because we have been the country that is like capitalism above all else. Take all of the reins, the tethers off of capitalism and let it run the fuck wild. And so much propaganda to push capitalism at every turn. And the fact that even here we're down to 25% think it's good for society. That's pretty incredible.
Well, yeah, and I think this kind of ties in to things that I've mentioned with regards to my film, but also beyond it. It's that folks don't always know because they haven't had the privilege of an education. They haven't learned about like capitalism versus socialism versus other economic systems. But everyone knows what oppression feels like, right? You don't have to tell. Everyone understands what it feels like to have the boot of the system on your fucking back.
I only partially agree because I think some people work at shitty jobs and they don't know that their life has become kind of a form of slavery. They think...
Well, right, they wouldn't put it that way, but they would say that life is hard. And they would say, and a lot of people, particularly like in the South or just like in poor neighborhoods, I'm speaking from my own experience, poor white neighborhoods in the South, like West Virginia or Louisiana, North Carolina, these places take pride in that. So I agree with you that not everybody is like, yes, I'm an oppressed mass, but people have the feeling that life is hard, but they've been so propagandized so as to believe that that oppression is something to take pride in. But if you actually sit down with these folks and you talk to them about like the realities of the system and why they don't trust it and why it's fucked up
and whether they should be paid more and whether the corporate owners of the mine they work in treat them poorly, they understand all of that.
Right, exactly. And no one that I've spoken to yet has been like, yeah, no, I absolutely think that I should die at 40 because I worked in a coal mine. That sounds legit.
Yeah. I think you're right that there is an understanding of a level of oppression, even if they don't understand that simply we now live in a world where there's really no reason that most of us should be forced to spend a lot of our most productive years at jobs we hate. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a lot of reason other than to feed a capitalist beast that most people don't understand and most people are not really benefiting from other than just survival.
Amen, sister.
And that survival could be supplied in many other ways now that we live in a post-scarcity world. If we really wanted to use it effectively, if we really wanted to use the resources and the food effectively, just the fact that we throw out 40% of all food, you could easily feed everyone and feed them well. We're not talking, here's your protein cake made out of bugs that have been collected in the backyard. We're talking feeding people quite well.
Hey, bugs are the future.
Don't interrupt my rant for your love of bugs. You don't. But the bugs are good people too. You should let them live.
Okay, but we can't all live off of fucking carrots.
Anyway, point is, it seems that this message is getting across. And again, you said you're talking about the effect of Occupy, but the effect of so many of these things we talk about, you and I talk about on this podcast, alternative media has talked about. That is why this is down to 25%, is people are becoming informed and they're not getting that information from your mainstream media. And most of these people probably still trust the mainstream media, so they're still getting a lot of information there. But the reason they understand more about how capitalism has fucked us and is destroying the environment around us and is destroying many people's lives, they're getting that information outside of the corporate media because that media is meant to sell the propaganda of unfettered capitalism.
Yep.
So moving on to, this is a pretty incredible story, but not surprising. This is about dark money and how aggressively it has taken over our system. So many of you, or maybe all of you, know what a super PAC is. This is a way to get around money requirements. They create these political action committees, and you can donate unlimitedly to these committees that then can spend it for a candidate as long as the candidate isn't working with them. So, it could, Donald Trump's friend or his, what's his name, Robert Mercer, could donate $1 billion or whatever to a super PAC that then plays ads that help Donald Trump in the election. And that would not count about in terms of the $2,000 whatever limit on election donations. So it's a way to get around election spending limits. And this, most recently, The Intercept has discovered that a super PAC, hold on, I'll give you the name. Oh, by the way, this name is fucking beautiful. The super PAC is called Americans for Tomorrow's Future, which
I don't understand.
What the fuck is tomorrow's future? What about today's future? Isn't it the same future? Why? Americans for tomorrow's future. And are there any Americans against tomorrow's future?
I am vehemently against tomorrow's future.
I founded Americans all about yesterday's future. And so I hate for tomorrow's future. No, it's a fucking horseshit name, which should be the first sign that you know this is going to be a load of horseshit. So this is a Republican conservative. They outwardly say they are Republican. They are conservative. This is a GOP super PAC. Okay, nothing crazy there. We're used to that. GOP super PAC, big deal. What's the point? Why is this a story? Well, it turns out they are secretly donating heavily for a Democrat Representative Eliot Engel, who is a standard corporate Democrat entrenched in his seat, and he is dealing with a tight primary by a man named Jamal Bowman, who I haven't, looked up Jamal Bowman, but they're calling him an insurgent candidate, so I assume this is a farther left wing, a maybe more true progressive, who could defeat Representative Engel, kind of similar to how Ocasio-Cortez beat the entrenched Democrat in New York. So now this Republican super PAC is donating over $100,000 to get the Democrat Engel to win his re-election, to win his primary. But they can't do that directly because that would look bad, right? And then Engel would have to answer questions as to why a GOP super PAC is donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to him. So what they do is they donate through a separate super PAC. They donate to, I don't know if I can find the name of the other PAC, but, it's New York. No, I can't find it. But anyway, they donate to another super PAC that is a Democratic super PAC that then donates to Engel. Here it is. It's the Democrat. Oh, yeah, this is even funnier. The Democratic Majority for Israel. So this is a Democrat pro-Israel super
legit.
PAC that apparently spent heavily against Senator Bernie Sanders. This is an article in The Intercept, by the way. And so this Republican super PAC takes over $100,000, gives it to a Democratic super PAC that then gives it to Representative Engel. It's a form of money laundering to make us not realize that a Republican super PAC is heavily donating to a Democrat. And this goes to show this is how the corporate America owns the system. This is how they make sure that people like Jamal Bowman, like Bernie Sanders, and they'll be donating heavily to try and stop Ocasio-Cortez in her next campaign. This is how they make sure those people are not in Congress. Mm-hmm. And even if you count Ocasio-Cortez and who are the other? Ilhan Omar and the others. Even if you count the squad and one or two others, Barbara Lee, even if you count them, we're talking 4 or 5 real progressives in Congress. A minuscule number. And those 4 or 5 are going to be heavily primaried to try and stop them from getting back into Congress.
Yeah. It is a racket. It is a good old-fashioned racket. And, this is, I haven't looked at numbers, and it might be a little bit different this year because of the pandemic, but spending on elections has risen like exponentially every, 2 to 4 years, just from these super PACs and from billionaire donors, just basically ensuring that, combined with the fact that we've got interstate cross-check and people are bumped off of rolls and voter ID laws and all this other bullshit, basically ensuring that people don't get a say unless, as you've noted, Lee, you flood the polls to such an extent that you overtake what they stole. But this shit is just yet another chapter in the "we don't have a fucking democracy" book.
Right, and the studies show that the candidate who spends the most money wins over 80% of the time. So really, the odds of beating someone without spending the most are slim to none. And then on top of that, you have the famous Princeton study that showed we are an oligarchy. When the United States of America, the populace actually wants something to happen, policy-wise, it does not happen almost 0% of the time unless it corresponds with corporate interests, which occasionally happens. So, like, for example, with Obamacare, he was able to make it, and his administration was able to make it so that the health insurance companies got behind it.
Well, and to be fair, that's not actually what the people wanted. People wanted universal health care.
But if you looked at the polls, people did want Obamacare over not getting Obamacare, is what I mean. So I agree. It's if they actually understood what it was and they understood what other options were on the table, then no, Americans do not want that. But polling-wise, over 50% of Americans wanted Obamacare to happen versus not happening. And it did happen, but that was because they were able to get corporations to sign on.
Yep.
Shall I wrap up?
Yes. Let's wrap.
But we are headed over to patreon.com/common censor to do 10 to 15 extra minutes. We'd love for you to join us over there. You guys make this show possible. If you're able to chip in a couple of bucks, please do. Patreon.com/common censored. Also, our live stream, our next one, which free to attend, is this Saturday, 8 p.m. at youtube.com. 8 p.m. Eastern, at youtube.com/moment of clarity. That's the newer YouTube channel, the Moment of Clarity channel, not the Redacted Tonight channel. Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to see you there. Also, check out Eleanor's movie, hardroadofhope.com. It's winning all kinds of awards. You should really check it out. And my stand-up comedy special is free at leecampamerican.com. My book's at leecampbook.com. And all of Eleanor's writing and everything else is at artkillingapathy.com.
Yes, indeedy. Until next time.
Keep fighting.
Act out.